most common one people try in the new year is running.
So you're going to burn muscle, it's going to leave you flabbier and saggier, it's going to accelerate aging.
Gym classes are also not going to be the best place to start.
But you put your body in a state where it can't function anymore.
For women over 40, running is not a great main form of exercise.
Another workout people tend to try in the new year is hello and welcome to the Trinity Fit Over 40 podcast. With me, Rob Burkhead.
And me, Ben Hughes. We are the co-founders of Trinity Transformation and creators of the Fit Over 40 method. And together with our world-class coaching team, we have helped more than 7,000 women over 40 to fit back into their favorite clothes over the past decade. For more information about what we do, go to www.fit40info.com. So every year in January, we hear from hundreds of women panicking, having gained weight over the festive period. I've got loads of emails in my inbox at the moment from women who are asking questions like, what is the best workout plan to lose weight and tone up around menopause?
So the first thing you need to understand is the key changes that are happening around menopause. And for a lot of women, this happens earlier than they think. And we get asked all the time, does this apply when I'm over 50? Does this apply when I'm postmenopausal? What we're going to talk about today applies from perimenopause, which typically happens for women in their late 30s or early 40s. This is when your hormones start to change, all the way through for the rest of your life. So the key changes that start to happen is your sex hormones start to decline. So estrogen is the main one, but progesterone as well, testosterone as well, they all start to decline. But the biggest one you need to worry about is estrogen declining, because estrogen kind of makes things a lot easier when you're younger. Estrogen makes up for a lot of things that mean you could do almost any kind of exercise and see good results. When estrogen declines, what happens is there's a number of knock-on effects on the body. So the first key one is your body's sensitivity to stress increases. This is because estrogen helps to regulate cortisol, which is the main stress hormone. And if cortisol is too high too much of the time, what's called chronically elevated, it can trigger the weight gain triangle, which is three knock-on hormone effects of high cortisol, which make it very hard to lose weight and very easy to gain it. So these are leptin resistance, insulin resistance, and thyroid deregulation. And this then means you have increased cravings because leptin helps to manage your satiety and hunger levels. You have increased fat storage around the middle because insulin is effectively a hormone that helps you store fat in different places, or tells your body whether you should be storing fat around the middle or not, especially from eating carbohydrates. And then your thyroid is the gland in your throat that controls your metabolism. And if that's deregulated, it slows down your metabolism. So this is something you really want to avoid, is this chronically high cortisol state. And estrogen helps to avoid that. As the estrogen levels drop, you're going to need to more actively avoid that through your own choices. So that's the first one. But there's a few other really key things that happen. So the second thing that happens is bone mass starts to reduce. So bone mineral density reduces, and you can end up with osteopenia or osteoporosis. And you may have heard about these terms. This is where you get brittle bones. And the biggest reduction in this is between the ages of 50 and 54, where on average, women lose 4.4% of their bone density every single year if they don't do the right things. And if you do the wrong type of exercise, you're going to actually accelerate this. And this is due to a lower level of estrogen and going through the change from perimenopause to postmenopause. And if you don't do the right things, you could lose 25% of your bone density in this time. Now, you can build it back, and we'll talk about today how you do that, but it's much, much harder to build it back than it is to just retain it. So if you can retain it through the right exercise choices, along with the right nutrition choices, you'll avoid this. It's not just bone that's reducing, though. Muscle is also reducing at a rate of about 1% a year from the age of 30 onwards, and this accelerates through menopause too. There aren't clear stats yet from the data, but it's pretty much common knowledge that muscle mass reduces even more, which will make you flabbier, it'll make you saggier, it'll make you slow down your metabolism. It leads to things like bingo wings, it leads to not feeling toned, it leads to struggling to climb the stairs, struggling to keep up with family on the walk, walks with the family, and like climbing up hills and things is a really common thing people struggle with because they lose muscle in their legs. Also, having less muscle means you have a slow metabolism and you can't process carbs so well. You're more likely to store carbs as fat rather than your muscles processing them. So there's many, many disadvantages to losing muscle. There's many disadvantages to losing bone. You need to do something that's going to help to combat that. And you can combat that, but only with the right exercise choice. And then the last thing is estrogen is a natural anti-inflammatory and joint lubricant. So you're going to have more joint aches and pains. You're going to be more prone to injury as well, potentially around menopause or from perimenopause onwards. So we've really got to be conscious of that and pick the right type of exercise that's going to help minimize any injuries, aches and pains, and hopefully eradicate them completely. On top of all of that, so those are the physiological changes that are happening in terms of your biology. Your life also tends to get busier than ever. If you're anything like our clients, work gets busier than ever. People are at the top of their career. They're in back-to-back meetings all day. They've got more responsibility than ever. So work is super stressful. So their baseline stress level is high, and family life is super stressful and busy. They're caring for aging parents on top of raising children, and it's a lot to cope with. So you really need to be aware of your current stress levels and not adding too much additional stress through that exercise. So what you really want to do, exercise-wise, what you really want is something that's time efficient, because if you're, as I said, anything like a lot of our clients, you're fairly short on time, you're pretty busy. So you need something that's going to fit into your life as it is now. Something that keeps stress levels low to moderate, so avoids pushing that cortisol level to the point where it's chronically elevated and triggering that weight gain triangle. You want something that improves bone density and builds muscle mass to avoid osteoporosis and also to feel more toned, keep your metabolism high. And you want something that's gentle on the joints so that you don't end up injuring yourself or increasing aches and pains, which means you want to stop. And lastly, you want something that maintains and improves cardiovascular fitness, because heart disease is one of the biggest killers for women post-menopause. It's not pre-menopause, but estrogen is heart protective. So you also want something that's going to help maintain your cardiovascular fitness, but it needs to do all the other things as well. And most people only pick exercise that improves cardio fitness, but is not time efficient, that overstresses the body, that reduces bone density, that reduces muscle mass, and is hard on the joints. So Ben, most type of exercises don't meet that list I've just given. What are some examples of those types of exercise?
So we've got three main examples of types of exercise that people very commonly try in the new year, which don't necessarily tick any of those boxes that need to be ticked. The first one, and one thing that people very, very often, I'd say the most common one people try in the new year, is running. So either doing, just going out jogging or trying to do a couch to 5K. And this type of approach can work well for women in their 20s and 30s whose hormones are optimal. And it can basically, if you're in a state where you can maintain that muscle mass, maintain that bone density very easily, almost without trying. So, it's not naturally decreasing just as a result of age, then it can work very, very well. But for women over 40, running is not a great main form of exercise in terms of trying to lose weight, trying to tone up, trying to look and feel your best. That's not to say you need to completely avoid all of these forms of exercise we're going to say. It's just, if your main goal in the new year is to lose weight, to tone up, to feel better in your clothes, you're going to be much better off putting your effort into other things rather than doing running and the other two other forms of exercise we're going to cover in a second. But for women over 40, running is firstly catabolic, so it will burn muscle, which is really kind of detrimental, as you already mentioned, Rob, and that will lead to that slowing of metabolism. It will make it more difficult for you to achieve your goals. The second problem with it is it has quite a high injury risk, even for people in their 20s and 30s who are quite used to doing exercise. If you do a lot of running, for everybody, there's kind of an amount of running that you'll do where you just start to pick up these little injuries, whether it's kind of knee problems, shin splints, plantar fasciitis, hip issues. There's almost kind of a whole list of running specific injuries that people tend to pick up because it's quite difficult on your body. When you're running, you're literally putting your entire body weight, a multiple of your entire body weight through all of your joints every time you take a step when you're running. And especially if you're already carrying extra weight. So if you're a few stone heavier than you used to be, you haven't run for a long period of time, and suddenly you decide, I'm going to get back into running. It's like getting back into running, except you're wearing a huge weight vest or a backpack or something, and you've got all of that extra weight pushing down on your joints, and you've probably reduced muscle mass. So you've got less muscle mass supporting those joints, and you've got this reducing estrogen, which just means your injury risk goes through the roof with running, if that's kind of the first thing you decide to jump into in the new year. And the third issue with running is it's also highly stressful on the body. So it will really raise levels of that stress hormone cortisol. Overall, if you use running as your main form of exercise, it's very likely to trigger that weight gain triangle, very likely to leave you injured, very likely to reduce muscle mass. Overall, it's not going to be the best approach if you're looking to lose weight and tone up as a woman over 40.
And that's a great point, Ben. If you're already running a lot, look at the signs. Are you getting the results you want? But if you're not running regularly and then you suddenly start, it's not the best place to start, because it's sort of all those things you just listed. It's going to potentially be quite a bad place to start. It could lead to a lot of injuries and then leading to stopping. And it doesn't get great results in terms of physical body shape change around menopause anyway. Now, another workout people tend to try in the new year is spinning. So my wife was looking at booking onto a spin class today, and it was fully booked. And it's not been fully booked for months, but post-Christmas, it's completely fully booked at her gym. And very similar to what you've just described with running, there's a lot of downsides to spinning. Now, there's a few upsides. So it's going to help improve your cardiovascular fitness because your heart rate's going to be really, really high. But what a lot of people don't realize is if you don't do that in the right way, you can actually make a lot of other things worse. So it's very, very high intensity spinning. It's going to be a lot of standing up in the saddle. There's going to be a lot of pushing really, really hard. And that can potentially be too much for the body around menopause, especially if your work is stressful, if you're not sleeping too well, if you've got a load of menopausal symptoms, your body probably is already close to being on the edge with its cortisol levels, and you're probably going to push it over the edge with spinning. And this will backfire, leading to those increased cravings, leading to reducing your metabolism, leading to increased insulin resistance, so storing more fat around the middle. And one thing my wife has noticed, she said a lot of people who go to the spin class who are older have got this kind of, she's pregnant at the moment, so she's saying a lot of them look as pregnant as me, and they're not pregnant. You know, they're men and women in their 50s, and they've got this kind of, spare tire or belly. And why is that? And it's because of this increased cortisol levels, increased stress level that the body can't tolerate so well. What will also happen is if you're doing longer spin classes, which they usually are, so 30 minutes or more, it's catabolic, just like running. So you're going to burn muscle. It's going to leave you flabbier and saggier. It's going to accelerate aging. And spinning is very low impact. So there's no bone density improvement, or very, very minimal, but pretty much none. Because you're not loading the joints with heavy weights, which is the most effective way to build bone density. And you're not getting any impact, which is also not going to improve it. So it's quite a lot of time. It's quite a lot of effort. And we have loads of clients who've done 1 or 2 gym classes a day and noticed they were gaining and gaining weight. And, they're getting bigger and bigger around the middle, no matter what they tried in terms of doing more and more spinning. And it's because of all of these reasons. It can work much better if you're in your 20s and 30s, but it's really not a good choice if you're over 40 and going through any sort of menopausal changes or your post-menopause.
And another one, which is also something that people typically book onto at a gym, is things like gym classes or high-intensity interval training, whether that's at the gym or whether you're doing that kind of at home in your own time. Typically, most gym classes are long-duration HIIT training, which is high-intensity interval training. For example, body pump, whatever they are, body pump, body attack, all of these different classes are basically the same thing. They're basically just a different packaging of a long duration, high intensity interval training class. Many of these are kind of masquerading as things like weight training. So, typically these will use quite a light weight. You'll be moving it in a way which is closer to cardio rather than weight training. If you're doing weight training, typically you'll be lifting a weight which is quite a challenging weight, quite a good amount of weight to challenge your body. You might do 8 to 12 repetitions with that particular weight, and then you might take a minute to a minute and a half rest before repeating it. And that kind of specific structure is what makes kind of weight-based training effective. But in these classes, instead, you kind of pick up a bar and you just continuously just doing more and more and more movements with it. And the structure of it's not really designed to kind of help you build strength and maintain muscle and all of those things. It's just designed to keep your heart rate really high, to burn a load of calories. It's more for that kind of, it's more going to give you that kind of cardio benefit rather than having the best kind of impact in terms of losing weight and toning up. It's not going to be a very effective way of building muscle either, as the intensity is just too high. So gym classes are also not going to be the best place to start. There are much, much more effective methods that you can follow instead, which are going to give you much, much better results. Rob, we've gone through kind of what doesn't work, but what is actually going to work best for women in their 40s, 50s, and 60s?
This is a great question. And just before I get into the answer, I want to elaborate on one thing you said, because you mentioned the calorie burn being really high from gym classes and HIIT. And I think this is something a lot of people get really hung up on, is looking at the calorie burn on their watch, on the machine they're on, and just focusing on that. And that is something that typically works for people, especially women in their 20s and 30s who want to maintain their weight. They just look at calories in versus calories out. And They use the exercise as a form to increase their calories out, the calories they're burning, and they're able to lose weight. And that tends to stop working around menopause, because if you just burn a load of calories, you can potentially put your body in a state. There's a lot of different terms from it. Stacey Simmons used the term RED-S or LEA, which is low energy availability. But you put your body in a state where it can't function anymore because there's not enough calories to maintain bone density. There's not enough calories to maintain muscle. There's not enough calories for your body to even function well enough to be in a state where it can lose fat effectively. And it also tends to ramp up hunger hormones, and people tend to then end up blowing out and binging and overeating. And it all tends to backfire around menopause, when people are not sleeping well, when their hormones are all changed, when everything is different. So I think that's a really important point to just say, is calories in versus calories out as a kind of exercise approach, where people are just obsessing about, I need to burn more calories. I get 500 calorie burn from running or spinning, but I only get 250 from my weight training, is completely the wrong mindset. And typically that backfires. Typically that ends up with people getting much, much worse results. And we had a client, Helen, who I still remember because she won one of our transformations of the year, who was doing 2 gym classes a day, burning hundreds, 5, 6, 7, 800 calories a day through her gym classes. And yet she was gaining weight month on month on month as her body was going through menopausal changes. And she joined us and changed to what I'm about to talk about, 3 workouts a week, and lost over 2 stone, now has pretty much a 6-pack in her late 50s at 57, by shifting her mindset from that calorie burn approach to how can I support my body and work with my changing body, which is what it's all about. So what that needs to look like is very simple. First of all, the foundation of any exercise program around menopause should be LIST, low impact strength training. And I've just finished a menopause coaching specialist certification. I'm looking over there because the book's there. I've just qualified at the end of last year. My goal was to finish it by the end of the year. And I know this already, but again, 2 whole chapters of this giant Bible-sized textbook were all about how strength training should be the foundation of any exercise around menopause. It's the only thing you have to do if you want to be fit and healthy and get good results. All the other stuff's like icing on top of the cake, and actually can sometimes backfire if you do too much of it. So low impact strength training is basically lifting weights in a slow and controlled way. It's not rushing it. It's not doing it for 5 minutes. As you said, Ben, it's like somewhere between 5 and 15 repetitions typically is going to be best. In control, taking the muscle to near failure, so sort of 2 reps away from failure is what's generally recommended. The reason this works so well is because it ticks all the boxes I mentioned earlier. So it keeps stress on the body low, meaning your body stays in an optimum state for losing weight. You don't send cortisol levels through the roof. It builds muscle, which tones you up all over. It counteracts that kind of muscle loss you usually get with aging. And you can actually, there's research now that shows you can build muscle at any age. It does get harder as you get older, but this is like over 70, it starts to get harder. So you can build back that lost muscle, which will get rid of your bingo wings. It'll flatten your stomach, but it will also increase your metabolism, and you can eat more and lose weight much more easily. Plus, this is something people really don't realize. You still get a cardio benefit from strength training. If you're strength training properly and you're taking your muscles close to failure, and then you're having a rest and then you're doing it again, you're still getting a kind of interval training. Your heart rate is still raising up. You're still going to get it up to 110, 120 beats per minute, maybe 130 on lower body movements. And then it's going to come down, and it's going to go up and down throughout that whole workout. And you're still going to average a relatively high heart rate. So you're still getting all the cardio benefits you'd get from those other cardio workouts, but without overstressing the body, because you're giving it time to come back down in between. It's also very, very efficient. So our clients only train 3 or 4 times a week for 30 to 45 minutes. And they typically lose 1 to 2 stone in 12 weeks. They average 12.9 pounds, which is 1 pound off a stone, weight loss in 12 weeks. That's based on our data from last year. And last but not least, this type of training, LIST training, can be done from home. So you don't need to waste time commuting to and from the gym. Our clients typically do it in their living room or in their garage or in their conservatory, in their bedroom, and they still get phenomenal results without having to waste half an hour each way going to a gym and all of that stuff. And they can fit it in between work meetings. They can fit it in at the beginning of the day before starting. It's so much more flexible. And last but not least, there's no jumping around. So it's gentle on your joints. So there's very low injury risk, but you're still going to get the bone mineral density benefits, because what they've now found from the data is lifting heavy weights is the most effective way to build bone mineral density. It activates the osteoblasts in your bone, which then rebuild your bone and will help you to avoid osteopenia and osteoporosis. So it kind of has all benefits and no downsides, other than obviously you have to do it 3 times a week, ideally. as a minimum to get good results for 30 to 45 minutes. What other good types of exercise are there, Ben? If people are thinking, okay, great, I'm already doing 3 strength training workouts a week, I'm already hitting that kind of essential exercise to support my body and health around menopause, what other good types of exercise could people add on top if they still wanted to add something?
We talked about that kind of calorie burn effect previously, how it's not going to be the number one strategy or the main strategy. But if you're already strength training, you're already eating well in terms of nutrition, giving your body what it needs, plenty of protein, the right amount of calories for you to maintain that muscle density, bone density, then burning a few extra calories can just help you sort of, move your results along a little bit more. It's kind of like an extra topping rather than the actual main course, which would be your strength training. So things that can do this are typically other exercise you want to do is things which is gentle on the body. It's not, shooting your heart rate through the roof. You're not jumping around, not these kind of high intensity classes, but easier, gentle things. So things like walking, things like yoga, Pilates, swimming, all of these things are just getting your body moving, but in an easy and gentle kind of way. None of these things are going to be as effective as LIST at changing your body shape or building muscle or even at burning body fat. And the best combination for most people is just going to be doing those 3 LIST workouts. That's really, stress again, that is the key thing you want to do, making sure you are lifting those weights 3 times a week at least. And then you add in just some walking, just upping your step count. If you do those two things together, that's going to be the most effective and most efficient combination. But yeah, the key with those other forms of exercise, it's just getting your body moving and just doing that in a gentle way. I think the way to kind of measure it would be your additional, like your LIST training that you do. If you go and do these strength workouts and you do them properly and you're really challenging yourself with the weight, you will need like 24 to 48 hours to recover before you do your next session. Your muscles will be sore, you will be aching, you'll feel it. You'll feel that you have worked hard. All the stuff you do in between, you don't want it to add to that kind of fatigue that you're feeling from your main workouts. You almost want all of your other things to be kind of a recovery session. So it's just going on a nice gentle walk, getting the blood moving, and you don't come back thinking, God, I'm knackered after doing that and now I need more rest. You come back feeling the same as you felt before you even went on the walk. Or if you're doing yoga, make sure you're doing a nice gentle session, just getting your body moving, doing lots of nice stretches to improve your flexibility and prevent injuries and all that kind of thing. And that you're not doing the type of yoga there's many different types of yoga, and some yoga you end up in they're trying to make you do headstands and you're like, it's almost another workout because it's very difficult strength-based yoga. So you want to be doing really easy, gentle stuff. And again, with swimming, we don't want to be going to the pool doing like butterfly laps up and down the pool, doing like 50-meter freestyle in the fast lane. You just want to be that. It needs to be nice, gentle, easy swimming, just keeping yourself moving, just getting the blood flowing, but without really ramping up your heart rate and really kind of overstressing the body.
We have countless examples of clients who have made these changes you're talking about here, Ben. So they swapped HIIT, spinning, running, or gym classes for LIST training, maybe with a few of those extra sprinkles on top. But the main thing is they made that switch from these cardio-based, high-intensity-based exercise to strength training. And their body shape changed dramatically. They lost loads of weight. And we've got one example here. I just want to read out from one of our clients, Sarah. So Sarah said, I always thought cardio was really important. When I first joined your program, that was something I was skeptical of because you were quite firm with me that I didn't need to do cardio, and it really shocked me. And I didn't. And I lost 45.5 pounds, so 3.25 stone, and went from a size 14 to a size 8, not doing any cardio. A lot of people keep asking me, oh, is it because of the running? And I'm like, no, I didn't lose it from the running at all. I wasn't running. It's like people don't want to hear that because they believe it's something else. It's my LIST training and my balance in my food and all the other stuff is how I got where I'm at.
Awesome. And if you want to find out more about the exact plan that Sarah followed in order to see those results, as long as thousands of other women in their 40s, 50s, and 60s who have lost 1 to 2 stone or 1 to 2 dress sizes over a 12-week period, just head to www.fit40info.com and you can find all of the details you need on that page.
So that just about wraps up for today's podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll catch you next week for another episode. We will see you then.